Tell me a little bit about the Thriving to Surviving group and what you guys kind of do.
Sure. So we're a peer support group. We meet in Bloomington, Illinois. Um, and our mission is pretty simple. We just want to provide a safe, non judgmental space where people can come to learn they aren't alone and be directed to resources and just find the hope to heal from perinatal mood and anxiety disorders.
Yeah, and in talking, I spoke with some experts yesterday. The peer-to-peer relationships are really critically important. Can you kind of explain why that is?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important. I mean, what we see is the majority of moms who are experiencing any PMAD symptoms, they think they're the only one. They think they're alone. They think there's something wrong with me. I'm a terrible mother. You know, I have to keep it a secret. Nobody can know. Um, and then when you get in the peer setting, you're around people who get it and other people who feel the same way. And you can literally just see the weight lifted off their shoulders and the light bulbs go off when they're like, oh wait, I'm not the only one. I'm not alone. She has felt this same way. And then they get to watch each other, you know, get better. And it always sounds a little corny, with the group. They literally go from, surviving day to day to thriving. And I get to watch that and see as, they go from really struggling to understanding it's not their fault and then getting the treatment they need. And then a lot of times they go on then to give back and help other moms. So it's kind of this ripple effect that goes out into the community too.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about that mindset you just mentioned there, I think, people who aren't mothers or who haven't experienced any of those kind of emotional conditions postpartum, I think they have trouble understanding, what exactly it is that the mom is experiencing. So can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hard for people to understand because until you've been through it, you think of motherhood and having a baby as, oh, this is the happiest time of your life. This is a miracle. It's such a blessing. Um, and people just don't until you've been in it, they just don't realize the guilt that comes along with wondering, why am I not having these feelings? Why don't I like my baby? I feel like I don't want my baby. What's wrong with me? And it's hard to understand until you've been through it. And I think a lot of well-meaning people ask those questions and put the pressure on moms and say, oh, isn't this the happiest time of your life? Can you even imagine your life before this? And the mom's thinking, like, yes, I could imagine my life before this. It was much better and I miss it. And that guilt is crushing. And so I think people mean well a lot of times and they don't realize how much guilt that the moms are feeling deep down inside.
Yeah, even when you were just when you said, I don't like my baby, I don't want my baby, I caught myself going, oh, but
Mm,
that seems wrong. Do you know what I mean? But it sounds like that's common and almost what you're saying, not necessarily unnatural and not an indicator that they're a bad parent. It's just natural frustration.
yeah, yeah. I mean, these are all just symptoms. We always tell moms, this isn't you, this isn't the new you. A lot of moms think this is just me. This is the new me. A lot of moms experience rage and anger. Um, you know, they describe it as white hot anger, like I was screaming, I was throwing toys. And that blindsides them because they don't expect that. They don't know that they're going to feel that way. And the same thing, regret. I should have never had this baby. I made a terrible mistake. Intrusive thoughts are really common. Um, and that's just a symptom too. Some moms have really scary, unwanted thoughts sometimes about harming their baby, sometimes about harm coming to their baby. Um, and if you don't know to expect that, you just think I'm a monster.
Right, absolutely. And that's kind of what is bringing this conversation into light, right? That national story where that mom ended up doing that and her husband, I believe he said, please find forgiveness for her. That wasn't her. So, it let me take it this way. I think we very easily looking from the outside can say, "Oh, that's a monstrous thing to do. That's terrible." But what do you hope people take from this national story? What kind of message and lesson do you want them to take from that?
Yeah. And I think that's a really natural way to feel. I mean, before I got into advocacy, I would have thought the same thing, how terrible, how could anyone do that? And then, once you get in this field and you start learning all the ins and outs and understanding, I haven't followed it super closely just because as advocates, sometimes we have to kind of guard our emotional state just because it's very heavy and triggering. Um, I'm guessing it's very likely she was experiencing postpartum psychosis, and not postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety. And so, with psychosis, you aren't in your right mind. Your reality is distorted. You think the thoughts that you are having make sense and they are normal, and this is what I should do. And sometimes they're driven by religious thoughts. I've heard of moms who think, you know, God told me that my baby is evil and the devil and I need to kill him. Those are psychosis thoughts. They're not in reality. So I think, just understanding, like that dad said, that wasn't her. That was, this terrible illness that she was experiencing. And what I think comes out of it, aside from just understanding and empathy and understanding that, moms who are experiencing any of the perinatal mood disorders, I mean, psychosis is kind of the most, you know, severe in a medical emergency, but it's really hard. They all feel like they're failing. They feel like terrible mothers. They just need to be validated. And, this isn't you. The way you are feeling, this isn't your fault. You didn't do anything to cause it. And my hope is that communities would start to really dive in and understand postpartum psychosis and what an emergency it is. And let's be prepared and proactive before our community is the next community to have a tragedy because of something like postpartum psychosis. Let's be prepared. Let's know the signs and symptoms so that we can get these moms help and hopefully prevent another tragedy.
Yeah, as a final kind of topic that I want to touch on here, what are those signs and symptoms? What can people look out for?
So, and something that I actually just recently learned in my advocacy is postpartum psychosis. They say it's waxing and waning. So these moms, they seem fine 1 minute, and then the next minute, maybe they're not fine. Maybe they're saying things that don't make sense. They're having hallucinations. They might be hearing things. So it's not uncommon for, maybe the mom went to the doctor and she was kind of in that period where she was fine, but then she goes home and then she's not fine. So you may kind of see, this up and down with symptoms. Like I said, hallucinations, hearing things, really thoughts that are just out of the ordinary for them. A lot of times they center around religious ideas or thoughts. You think, I've been sent from God to complete this mission, or God is speaking to me. A lot of suspicion. You might think you're being listened to. People are watching. Everybody's against you. They're really not going to seem like themselves in the moment. Things that don't make sense, things sometimes rambly, just really, they may just be rambling on about things that don't make sense. And you think there's something wrong. I don't know what it is, but there's
Mhm.
something wrong. That could be psychosis.
Yeah, and then what do you do when you see those signs?
So that is a medical emergency. So you don't want to leave that person alone. You want to get them to the emergency room, call 911. If you're in a community that has, I know like in Bloomington, we have a mental health triage center. You want to get them into the hands of a medical professional or a mental health professional as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you want to add here?
You know, I don't think so. Just to kind of reiterate the fact that um, I hope this is a wake up call to all of our communities. Just we want to be prepared, and it's every advocate's worst nightmare for a tragedy related to perinatal mood and anxiety disorders to happen in their community. So I know, we're always just shouting from the rooftops about, you know, any of the perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, depression, anxiety, OCD, PTSD, psychosis, just hoping that more and more people will get on board and learn the signs and symptoms and learn what do we do when this happens, just to prevent a tragedy from happening.